That is going to be one of my favorite days of 2024.
The Trump assassination attempt.
It would be different if he got killed. He didn't. There's no tragedy happened. Well,
Yes.
for one guy.
Yeah.
And that I said that on stage that night also, that a guy shoots at Trump, the guy behind him gets shot and killed. That's so Trump. It's just it's so on brand
so
to have the other guy, he never goes to jail.
Giving Donald Trump control of the economy is like letting a toddler play with matches in a fireworks factory. Sure, they might get lucky for a second, but the inevitable explosion is going to be amazing, and not in a good way. Just like a toddler with nuclear codes, Trump's economic decisions went from oops to Americans are all financially doomed faster than you can say tax cuts for billionaires. And boy, did Bill Maher not hold back when he absolutely tore into Trump's so-called business genius. In a comedic and brutal rant, Maher exposed how the economy tanked.
He never, loses money in bankruptcy. It's always somebody else holding the bullet or the bag. But I said that, but I love that day because I remember it was Saturday, flew to Minneapolis. I had a show that night. As soon as the car pulled up to the hotel, before we got the bags out of the back, the guy from the hotel came up and said, Trump's been shot.
The moment Trump grabbed the wheel with policy flip-flops and billionaire bootlicking, making things worse faster than Trump could send out one of his midnight tweets. You might want to grab some popcorn because Mayor's jokes hit harder than the U.S. inflation.
Toss his boxy clown suits on the front lawn. Just tell him, I'm leaving you and I'm taking our child. He would be stunned.
If there's one thing Donald Trump loves more than slapping his name on cheap steaks, shady universities, and gold-plated toilet seats, it's pretending he knows how the economy works. But let's be honest. According to Bill Maher, the only numbers Trump is good at managing are the ones on his golf scorecard. And even those are a bit suspicious, because the second Trump got his tiny ketchup-stained fingers on the economy, things didn't just go downhill, they went off a financial cliff faster than his bankrupt casino. Speaking of which, let's talk about that business genius. If you want to understand the Republican Party's new direction, just look at how Trump's idea of business is more like a giant dumpster fire. He's got the red house again, but let's just say the economy is still stuck in the same place. Bill Maher absolutely did not pull any punches. He wasted no time exposing Trump's ridiculous economic circus act, from tax cuts for billionaires to wage stagnation for the working class. And let's not forget the removal of the separations ban as it pertains to federal contracts. Remember when Trump promised tax cuts for the rich would trickle down? Well, turns out the only thing that trickled down was utter chaos, confusion, tariffs, and more poverty.
Yes, it turns out that the stock market has really kind of rejected the notion that if we turn on our trading partners, chickens would lay more eggs. Yeah, I mean, when Biden was president, it was everything about the eggs, the price of eggs. We got to lower the price of eggs. And now Trump retweeted somebody last week who said, shut up about the eggs.
Let's face it, if a guy who ran a casino into the ground tells you he's going to make the economy great again, maybe, just maybe, don't believe him. What Americans seen thus far suggests otherwise. Just ask veterans, Medicare recipients, or thousands of former federal employees that were laid off without a legitimate cause how wonderful Trump's economy is. Trusting Trump to fix the economy is like trusting a raccoon to guard your lunch. Trump says he doesn't need to read 200-page reports. He seems to just makes decisions based on his gut. His gut, of course, being the size of a watermelon stuffed with fried chicken and Diet Coke. He's eating well, unlike most Americans who can't afford purchasing the bare necessities anymore. And somehow, that's what qualifies him to run the country. You know, decisions made on the back of a napkin at a Taco Bell drive-thru.
Yeah, the stock market has lost $5 trillion in 3 weeks. Yes,
Trump, he's the Ozempic of the economy. Wow. 5 trillion. Today, Greenland offered to buy us. There are...
Oh boy, Trump really thought the economy was booming, didn't he? Sure, it was booming for hedge fund managers and major corporate CEOs, with the exception of Target, of course, after the Israelite so-called black community came together for an economic boycott against the store giant and anyone selling MAGA merch outside his rallies. But for the average American, not so much. Wages stayed stagnant. Healthcare became more expensive than a gold-plated toilet seat, and rent and mortgage went up faster than Trump's total felony counts. But if you probably ask him, everything is perfect. The economy is booming. The economy is amazing. The best ever. Like, how's he rallying for a third term with a resume of poor policy in his presidential term thus far? Inconceivable. And now we get to Trump's legendary business career. Let's talk about Trump Airline. Oh, wait, you can't, because it lasted shorter than one of his press conferences. Or his Trump steaks, yeah, the finest cuts of meat money can buy. If you like chewing on shoe leather, you'd love them. And don't forget Trump University, where the only thing people graduated with was a lighter wallet and a lesson in how to spot scams. Yet somehow this self-made billionaire insists on teaching people how to run a country. The man lost money running a casino, a business where the house is supposed to win. But sure, he's the financial genius of the century. That's like trusting the guy who can't spell economy to fix it.
And Americans are like, but we need eggs. What else are we going to throw at the Teslas?
And speaking of Trump's fixes, let's talk about those tax cuts and lowering the cost of living to help stimulate the economy. Oh, Trump swore those tax breaks were going to be a game changer for the middle class. Spoiler alert, the only real winners and beneficiaries are the billionaires. Maybe Elon Musk's Dog can look into any fraud, waste, and abuse, starting with the current richest and wealthiest U.S. citizens. Trump is handed out breaks like chips at a poker party, but most Americans are stuck with enough of a scrap to possibly purchase a second helping of ramen noodles. That's if they haven't gone up the next time Americans have enough to scrap together 2 nickels to play the hope and wish game at the local grocery stores. Because sure, tax cuts for the rich will fix the economy, right? Because they're the ones who are the most affected by this, quote, amazing economy. Now, that's some government efficiency for you. Don't worry, though. In Trump's world, that money was totally going to trickle down, just like Trump University was supposed to give people a real education. But you know, corporations use their tax windfalls for stock buybacks, not higher wages. Regular folks saw their tax refunds shrink faster than a cheap t-shirt in the dryer. And don't forget, by 2027, those middle-class tax cuts would be gone. But don't worry, the ultra-wealthy will still be raking in the dough while everyone else is paying for the privilege of being left behind.
Taking our child, he would be stunned. We have a child. So kick him to the curb. Slap away that hand for good. No more public embarrassment. No more stealing your makeup.
People say classic Trump, sell the fantasy, cash in on the reality, and leave someone else to clean up the mess. Meanwhile, Bill Maher took no mercy as he ripped apart Trump's obsession with the stock market. The man thought if the Dow Jones went up, the economy was perfect. But here's the thing, the stock market is not the economy. That's like saying the YouTube likes and subscriber count determines how healthy you are. But of course, Trump kept pointing at that imaginary scoreboard of success. When the stock market crashed, Americans could hear birds chirping in regards to a response. He'd probably just blamed everyone else. Of course, consistently avoids accountability and responsibility. Let's not forget the trade war. Oh boy. Watching Trump negotiate trade deals is like watching a guy haggle over a bootleg DVDs in a dark alley. He slapped tariffs on everything that moved with no understanding of how they actually work. When you tax imports, American consumers pay the price. It's like setting a house on fire and calling it innovative heating. But don't worry, some of Trump's MAGA supports loved it, right up until it started wrecking their livelihoods. Some farmers lost everything, businesses struggled, and the working class got stuck with the bill. More than likely, if you ask Trump how the economy's doing, he'd probably say America first. The U.S. is winning on both sides, both sides. Of course, when things go horribly wrong, it's the other party's fault. Trump has made big, flashy promises. He seems to ignore all the warning signs because it looks like a financial collapse is on the horizon. Take no responsibility and blame others. However, everyday Americans continue to struggle. The ones who can't just write off $100 million in losses and go on living as if everything is wonderful. Trump is still out there promising to fix everything, kind of like an arsonist asking to be a fire chief. And his base, they eat it up like candy-coated raindrops. They think the guy who handed out massive tax cuts to billionaires and left them to fend for themselves is their king. It's a masterclass in political gaslighting. The economy's in shambles, and Trump's solution? More of the same reckless policies in overdrive. Remember this. Trump's version of economic genius is nothing more than a series of hollow promises and laughable missteps wrapped in an orange and red package sold as something great. But as Bill Maher reminds people, this is one comedy special that isn't over yet. So buckle up, folks, because it's going to be a bumpy ride if things don't change. Trump's economy? A disaster thus far, but it's one he's sure to sell as a victory. After all, when the smoke clears and the dust settles, he's going to keep spinning that same old tale. The only thing for certain, the jokes will keep coming and comedians will always have new material.
I mean, the day I feel like I can't say what I want without going to Guantanamo Bay, I'll just leave.